Even though work on the ninth generation of a Pixel smartphone is well underway, people often express concern that Google is going to suddenly up and abandon their hardware ambitions and drop the Pixel line altogether. If you are one of those people who are concerned with that possibility, today's news might be of particular interest to you. I don't think it's going to totally dispel that notion, but I think it's definitely really, really interesting. This is coming from The Verge. It's been sourced from some other places, but they have some interesting quotes here that we're going to go through. Google is combining its Android and hardware teams, and it's all about AI. AI is taking over at Google. The company's changing in big ways to try and make it happen even faster. What we have going on right now is a substantial internal reorganization and the creation of a new team called Platforms and Devices that will oversee all of Google Pixel products, all of Android, Chrome, Chrome OS, Photos, and more. So why would that potentially ease someone's concerns with Pixel devices being sort of forgotten and left by the wayside? Well, I would say that one of the biggest reasons that people are afraid of this sort of thing happening, of course, you have the Google graveyard, which we've talked about several times. But beyond that, there seems to be this fragmentation problem with Google and their Pixel devices. I think I actually just read an article talking about this fragmentation problem. And what they're doing here with this reorganization is bringing everything together under one banner in a way that I think makes a lot of sense, right? So Pixel products and Android underneath one banner makes a lot of sense. You don't have the Android team working on stuff and then the Pixel team sort of taking that and they're working on stuff. They can kind of just work together. They're all one thing. But then on top of that, Chrome, Chrome OS, Photos, and more. That makes a lot of sense as well because Chrome OS is pretty heavily reliant upon Android at this time, but they all are extremely reliant upon AI, and that will only become more and more the case as we move forward. So they're sort of planning this for the future. There's one common thread between these things. It's AI. Let's get them all together to make future development even smoother. Now, as we see here, the team will now be run by Rick Asterloh, who was previously the Senior Vice President of Devices and Services, overseeing all of Google's hardware efforts. Hiroshi Lockheimer, the longtime head of Android, Chrome, and Chrome OS, will be taking on other projects inside of Google and Alphabet. This is a really big shakeup, and it kind of reminds me of a shakeup from back in, what was this, April of 2022. Microsoft did something very, very similar. They brought all of their Android projects together under one banner. They're moving several key Android teams, obviously Surface Duo, OS, SwiftKey, PhoneLink, Microsoft Launcher, handful of other Android teams. Now, of course, this did not really do a whole lot because Panos Panay very shortly after this would exit Microsoft, and who knows what is going on with their Android projects going forward. I don't think we have the same concerns here with Google. There's only one reason for all of it, Osterloh says, AI. This is not a secret, right? Consolidating teams helps us to be able to do full stack innovation when that's necessary. He uses the example here of the Pixel camera. You had to have deep knowledge of the hardware systems, from the sensors to the ISPs to all the layers of the software stack. And at that time, all the early HDR and ML machine learning models that were doing camera processing, and think of that hardware, software, AI integration, really showed how AI could totally transform a user experience. That was important, and it's even more true today. What he's getting at, I think, is absolutely accurate. As we integrate these AI things more and more into our devices, you have to have all of these teams talking together, coordinating, and making sure that they fit together correctly. This is a pretty major investment going forward in Google hardware and Google software. You wouldn't be intermingling them if you're planning on getting rid of the hardware. You wouldn't be doing this. Speaking about their development with tensor processors and trying to have their GPUs keep up with competition, the fact that it is hardware and software working closely together, he says this is a sort of thing you can try to do with two teams, but when it's a single team with a single leader and a single goal, everything can just be faster. And this should help with this fragmentation problem, right? Where we have Pixel devices with a feature, other Pixel devices that maybe don't have this feature, Chrome OS waiting on a feature as well. If it's all under one banner, all being developed concurrently, that should be alleviated in theory. It's really hard to understate how big of a deal this is, guys. Google was long a software company. They always kept their hardware and their software teams separated, and they would come together for a product, but they were separate teams. That is not the case anymore, okay? Pixel phones, Google hardware and software teams working together, merged as one team with one leader. This is a really big shift for Google. Again, I say to you, would they do this if they weren't committed to Pixel phones? Of course not. Now, doing this is not without possible pitfalls. When Google starts truly focusing on their own hardware, they might run the risk of angering other OEMs with whom they typically work hand in hand with. For years, Google has said it studiously separates its own hardware efforts from its work with the broader Android ecosystem in order to not privilege its own devices or complicate relationships with companies like Samsung. Over the last couple of years, though, that relationship has shifted. Google's hardware team has sought to both build great devices and show the rest of the Android world where things can go. What all of this says to me is that Google actually really does want to be sort of that bleeding edge of Android. They want to truly represent the best of what an Android phone, Android device can be. And to do this, they know that they have to be able to move more quickly. They have to keep up with everything that is going on. And right now, that is AI. They have Google DeepMind doing their thing, and they need to be able to move more quickly to adjust to these rapidly changing software landscapes. This makes them much more nimble. And that is explicitly stated later on in this article. In general, he says, speaking of Osterloh again, in general, he says the plan is to just make everything faster, to update Google's devices more often as AI models improve, to nimbly launch new products rather than mire everything in the process of bureaucracy. We can't airdrop a new SoC into existing products, but we can design for longevity and then update our software frequently. I absolutely love it. And I think if you look at the fact that Pixel phones have been selling better and better each of the last 3-ish years now, really, Pixel 6 was like the best-selling Pixel, then 7 broke that record. I believe the 8 is on pace to do something very, very similar. Their sales are increasing. Their market share is increasing. And now if you look at the rumors for the Pixel 9, maybe all of this starts to make sense to you. The Pixel 9 is rumored to be potentially not just a Pixel 9 and 9 Pro, but a Pixel 9, a Pixel 9 Pro, a Pixel 9 Pro XL, and a Pixel 9 Pro Fold, as Google is potentially launching 4 phones all at once. Again, really underscoring how much more seriously they are taking hardware than they did in years gone by. This is all really exciting stuff for me. As someone who has been long a fan, I guess you could say, of Google hardware and Google software, I've been a Pixel user for a long time. Maybe not consistently. I've left the Pixel ecosystem and I've come back and I've left and I've come back many times, but I've always kind of kept my finger on the pulse of the Pixel phones. I am extremely excited to see what Google is doing with this reorganization, what it signals for the future. I will drop a link to this article in the description down below so you can check it out yourself, and I encourage you to do so because I did leave some things out from this article, but I do want to hear from you guys in the comments down below. What do you think about this news? What do you think it means for the future? I'll see you on the next one, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.